Beyond the bottlenecks, the silos, the ticking clock, there lies data. There are no decisions data can't drive, and no companies that can't become data-driven. This is what analytics is meant for, to see beyond what is to what's possible. Possible can move mountains, launch spaceships, make vaccines, change outcomes. And we all want more possibilities. We have more data, we have more questions, and we need to make better decisions. We want the opportunity to see the whole story and steer the next chapter, because only seeing part of the picture only tells part of the story. Our decisions deserve to be complete. Starburst wants to open your organization to new possibilities. A future without data lock-in, an end to data silos, an open view of your universe of data, for everyone to redefine what's possible now. Starburst opens a single point of access to all of your data, no matter where it lives. Finally, the ability to easily analyze all your data with skills your team already has to achieve anything humanly possible. Stop moving your data. Start using your data. The wait is over. Your possibilities are limitless.
Welcome, I'm Jess, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Starburst. If you were here yesterday, we liked that video so much, we played it again. If you were seeing it for the first time, I hope it got you pumped up for today's great show. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to repeat a little bit of my talk from yesterday because I expect we might have some new joiners today. My team's been working hard for months to bring you an exceptional content experience. And although this conference is free, we know you're paying us with your attention and we intend to deserve it. We recruited the brightest minds leading data strategy at companies like Scotiabank, Comcast, Rakuten, FINRA, and Northwestern Mutual. And we've also brought the authorities on data gravity, data mesh, and data literacy. Today's agenda is packed with content on data literacy, data governance, and how the concept of data mesh just might bring it all together. Don't forget to check out the technical track where my colleague Brian is moderating great deep dive sessions on Starburst products, but also customer use cases. So before we really kick things off, I wanted to thank our partner sponsors from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, Immuta and Red Hat. Red Hat is about to kick off our content today, showcasing our joint work in our first annual benchmark report called The State of Data. And thank you to our gold sponsors, Privacera, Looker, Google Cloud, and Blue Cloud. And thank you to our silver partners, Amazon Web Services, Slalom, Tableau, Trace3, and ThoughtSpot. We couldn't have done this without you. So let's get started. I'm very excited to welcome John Santaferro and Michael St. John to the DataNova stage to share the global results from our survey capturing the biggest pain points data professionals are facing today.
Thank you, Jess. Excited to be here. I'm John Santaferro from EMA. I'm the research director for data analytics and artificial intelligence. We've got some great primary research that we've done to take a look at the state of data. Today I've got with me Michael from Red Hat and Camille from Starburst. We're going to jump right in and take a look at the research that we did. We were able to go out and talk to 400 different respondents from 7 different countries around the world. And we have a great mix of company sizes, different budget levels for IT, and even a combination of business and technical professionals to be able to chime in on what is happening in the world of data. It's no surprise to you that there has been a massive shift in this post-pandemic world. And so we wanted to, right up front, find out what has the impact been. So from my perspective, the one thing that happened is that every single digital business model was put to the test. And those business models either failed or they succeeded. And it's the companies that were digitally ready that were able to succeed and even grow in 2020. And in 2021, the rest of the competitors are moving in with this realization that access to data is even more critical or far more critical after the pandemic than it was pre-pandemic. So 53% of the respondents replied indicating that a majority of people realize that the core to digital success in 2021 is going to be access to data and analytics. Along with that, we wanted to look at what types of workloads were driving data and analytics. And no surprise, SQL continues to be the lingua franca of all data. So that language is still on the top. 54% said that was important, but we're seeing graph analytics and machine learning and even time series analysis coming up. So that the challenge is that historically these two kinds of workloads, SQL and is done on different kinds of platforms than graph and machine learning and time series analysis. So what we're seeing is a need for unified analytics in 2021. There's also an imperative for faster data access. And that's being driven by two things: customer engagement and real-time changes in risk. 36%, the number one answer, said that customer engagement is what is driving the company's need for real-time access to data and analytics. And that's no surprise. Customer has been the number one use case for all analytics for the last 20 or 25 years. What's surprising is that risk has risen. Risk is usually maybe number five or number six, and down towards the bottom of why people need faster access to data. But I think because of the shutdowns and because of the way that digital business models were challenged, it suddenly became important for risk to be able to handle in a more timely manner than ever before as well. We also found out, we asked the question, how confident are you in your organization's ability to access timely, relevant information for decision making? And it turns out that 37% are only somewhat confident or not confident. So moving into 2021, there's a lot of work that has been done to adjust to the new digital requirements for business. But there's a lot of people that are in a place where, wow, we're not sure what this is going to look like moving forward. So what's going on out there? We wanted to understand better, what are some of the problems that why this lack of confidence, right? The first thing that we looked at was the idea that data is significantly distributed and the complexity of running multiple systems is not going away. So we wanted to know, how many systems are there in each particular company? 52% of respondents have more than 5 different data platforms. And this is really significant because the number 5 sounds like a lot, 12 is even more, but you have to consider that every data platform could have 100 or 200 or 300 instances. So you multiply that times 5, and you're talking about massive complexity. And what we're seeing is that in the next 12 months, that number is going to go up as well. And so you have a shift into the higher numbers. It's about the same number of people that are responding saying they have more than 5, but the higher numbers have an increase. So there will be even more. So Camille, Michael, do you guys want to make some comments? How are you seeing this in your engagement with customers?
Yeah, so this is really fascinating to me. I definitely see a lot of distribution of data across many sources, but seeing 2/3 of respondents indicating that they'll be having more than 4 or more systems is just ridiculous. I think this is where we can certainly help reduce that complexity with Starburst's ability to run queries across. But it is much more demanding and much more challenging than I ever predicted.
I would kind of echo that. We've seen with a number of customers, and we've worked on a number of projects with folks where we've looked to consolidate the number of analytics platforms that they have. And actually, I'll expand on that a little bit, because we've seen a lot of the new abilities with faster networks and the ability to have faster, more endurant and less expensive NVMe drives, as well as bringing together GPUs, et cetera, in those analytics and AI ML types of environments. All of that has given us the ability to take and separate or disaggregate your compute requirements from your storage requirements or your data requirements. And this really opens up the ability to run more of those analytics while still having a common context for the data that is being served for those platforms.
We went and asked the respondents, what are the biggest challenges you face in building and deploying data pipelines? Because historically, the way that you enable different platforms to work together is you create data pipelines, and that provides interoperability, or at least data integration of some kind, so that you can understand what is happening in your business across these multiple platforms. The challenge is that data movement is not always the best answer. And so the number one challenge is exactly what you just described. How do you combine data in motion with data at rest? But then once the data pipelines are fixed, there's an excessive amount of time spent with break and fix. 60% of the respondents said that they're spending more than 30% of their time just on break and fix. Massive amount of resource. And then you end up with data pipelines that are too complex because you're moving data everywhere, not just in one direction, but back to the platforms and then back out to other applications. And it becomes just a quagmire of data pipeline complexity. So continuing to move data is not always the best answer. How are you guys addressing these challenges?
Yeah, so I can talk from a Red Hat perspective. There's a lot of things that we've been doing to improve or automate some of those data pipelines. You know, certainly these are a number of things, a number of issues that at Red Hat we're tackling across our portfolio. Just consider the ability to automate those data pipelines using tools like object bucket notifications that are able to create events. And then those events can be picked up by serverless functions that are delivered through OpenShift, like through the Knative or OpenShift serverless functionality. And then that's able to spawn off any number of applications and move that workflow forward in the pipeline. And you can even trigger events to different endpoints, like, for example, Kafka streams. Kafka, we deliver that through our middleware product, Red Hat AMQ. But if you take, for example, a Kafka stream, and you could perhaps use Debezium, a Debezium connector to stream data from a SQL database. So you have that mix of data in motion and data at rest at that point. Now, these data patterns are greatly facilitated by automating those processes and delivering access to the data at rest, the data at motion, but it also enables data in action. And that's kind of where Starburst comes in. That's data that's flowing through, CI/CD pipelines or events that might kick off an AI application that's analyzing the data and even pushes objects back to the ML model stream to help refine the model. And that's, I think, where we can work we do work very strongly with Starburst to enable a lot of that data in action.
Yeah, I would just add one thing, that obviously you cannot stop using data pipelines, right? This is something you have to have in your infrastructure. However, what we say with Starburst, you can sort of reduce the need for some of those pipelines, because we provide single point of access, and for analytical purposes, you may access data where it lives in many cases. And then obviously once you find out the interesting patterns, right, you can invest in building the right pipeline rather than building too many of them, and then realizing that there wasn't actually that much need for moving the data into one place to start your analytics, right? So that's where we can help ease that pain.
Now we're also seeing at EMA that if all of your data is stored, for example, in object storage or block storage, you can create a data pipeline that doesn't have movement. The sound of data pipeline makes it seem like, well, that means data is moving from one place to another. And historically it has, but really the data pipeline is about building the functions that collect the data and cleanse it and prepare it for analytics and apply machine learning and get a result out of it. Well, if a lot of that data is going to be stored in a single storage and you can access it, via SQL or a single tool, now you have that ability to be able to at least remove the movement of data, and that reduces complexity. We also wanted to know, how long is it taking you to develop a data pipeline? And 46% of the respondents said it takes more than a day to develop, and 28% said it's actually taking us more than 3 days, anywhere from 3 days up to beyond 2 months to develop data pipelines. It can be a very complex and time-consuming process, but there's more than development. So we asked as well, on average, how long does it take to make a data pipeline operational and get it into production? It turns out 52%, it's an additional day, and 24%, it actually takes a week or more to get it into production. So now you're talking about, days and weeks and months many times to develop pipelines, data pipelines, and get them into production. It's even multiplied when you realize that there's a fairly high percentage of business decisions that require latency at less than a second or a millisecond. So moving data and transforming data and preparing data and building data pipelines is extremely complex, and the need for speed is on the increase because of digital business, because of what we talked about, customer engagement and response to risk. Camille, what about you? How are you addressing this, and how are you seeing this in the market?
Yeah, this is actually really fascinating. So obviously, all those requirements around milliseconds, less than a second, those are pretty much all automated decisions, right? The models are deployed, the events are coming in, and the decision is made automatically, right? There's no human interaction here, I think, because of such short latency. So obviously Starburst can help build those models and arrive at analytical insights at that last mile, last second of latency. On the other hand, the discovery analytics, this is where we will spend more time, analysts sitting in front of BI tool, SQL editor, and then you're running queries, and maybe it's actually not a one query, it's probably a series of queries and various investigations may lead you into arriving at various insights, sometimes within a minute, sometimes even within an hour, depending on the size of your data and the complexity of the insights you're applying here, right? So this is probably a sweet spot for this discovery analytics where Starburst also shines.
Awesome. So we want to also talk about what's the solution. So data access is more critical than ever before. We know that in order to succeed in 2021 and forward, that new digital models for business need to be created. We know that analytics is an important part of that. It's at the core of digital success. And yet there's tremendous challenges that people are facing. So the number one most obvious solution is cloud migration. It was in 2020, in fact, the amount of data stored in the cloud surpassed the amount of data that was stored on premises, according to a separate piece of research that we did. But in this particular research, we wanted to know currently how much of your data is in the cloud versus on premises. And it's 56% in the cloud. In 2021, within 12 months, that number is going to go up to 62%. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing with customers and how your cloud offerings are, how are people migrating to the cloud? What is that looking like? How difficult is it? And what are you doing to make it easier?
You talk about the multiple zettabytes of data that's being generated, and it's just growing exponentially. But if you look at all of that data, we're actually only using about 2% of all of that data that's being generated. And so there's obviously areas of improvement there that we can use tools like Starburst to be able to interact more with that data. But from the movement of data to the cloud, uh, I think this is a great example of how Red Hat OpenShift and Red Hat Data Services, for that matter, helps with data in the hybrid cloud. So regardless of the underlying infrastructure, whether you're on premises, on bare metal or virtual machines, for example, or in a private cloud, maybe like an OpenStack private cloud type of deployment, or in a public cloud deployment, OpenShift abstracts that complexity of running applications across different platforms. And at the same time, Red Hat Data Services provides that data abstraction layer that delivers a common user experience, regardless of where that data is actually sitting at any given time.
I would say that this is really great to see that movement. I think it's allowing to uniquely capitalize on being able to access data where it lives. Many of our customers that they started on-prem, and some of the applications, some of the data sets were moving to the cloud. Now that's accelerating, right? So the traditional big data storage mechanisms like Hadoop with HDFS are not really seeing much growth. Instead, that data is migrating to the cloud, to the object storage. Whether that's private cloud or public cloud, that's obviously another discussion, right? But most of the data is flowing into new places, and while there are still legacy data sources on premises, which we can actually, using Starburst technology, we can access regardless of where we deploy. That helps to provide this unified place where you come for analytics. You may not necessarily, as an end user, you don't see where the data is, while the infrastructure team is actually moving the data behind the scenes from on-premise systems to the cloud.
We also wanted to find out, what is impacting the buying decisions for data storage and access. And the number one answer came out as multi-cloud flexibility. 47% said that the number one reason that they are buying data storage platforms and data access platforms is that ability to connect data across clouds. Any comments on that? What are you guys seeing? How are you addressing the multi-cloud challenge?
This is an area where Red Hat delivers multi-cloud data federation through OpenShift. So we have our multi-cloud object gateway. This is actually based on upstream Nuba technology. It's a company that we acquired a couple of years ago, but data placement is no longer an issue as far as going across multi-cloud systems. But I think beyond that, and Camille, you can comment on this, I think Starburst allows organizations to gain powerful insights across data in multiple cloud platforms as well. And as well as across core data centers, and whether it's backed by OpenShift or Red Hat Data Services or some other data store, Starburst is able to enable those insights.
We'll be betting on the cloud service that we just announced, Starburst Galaxy, which sort of puts more burden on us to provide these operational aspects and allow you to just focus on your analytics more than keeping the environment running. So we can learn more about this in technical sessions later today.
So we wanted to find out, with data spread across the company and different types of data and multi-cloud and all of that, what practices are most important to making these systems work together? The number one answer was automating IT and data ops. So people no longer have enough resources to be able to do all the work that needs to be done to make everything work together. And the second was search across these multiple platforms. In other words, we have to figure out how to find the data that we need to make the decisions. And then the third, and these are all fairly high in the number of people looking for them, utilizing tools that access multiple platforms, such as data visualization or distributed query engines. There is this move towards automation and and simplification. What are you guys? I mean, this really describes, I think, a lot of what you're doing. What's your perspective on this?
Sure. So I think I talked a little bit about data pipeline automation and some of the tools that we use within the portfolio, from AMQ streams to some of the OpenShift serverless Knative type of functionality that helps with some of that data pipeline automation. Certainly, object bucket notifications that create event triggers, etc. But we also have an entire suite. Actually, we've been working, we're acutely aware that automation is a big opportunity for folks, and we've been working with companies for years with our Ansible suite of products to do a lot of that core automation, and from anywhere from application to network functions, etc. The Ansible suite of tools helps quite a bit with application automation across those platforms.
Camille, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we are focused squarely on sort of neutralizing access to your data and then are running queries. So we help you with that aspect. I feel like this is great to see the validation from this research that this is one of the top 3 concerns that people are looking for to address.
I think there's even more validation when you look at the technologies, the analytical capabilities that people see as important to the success of their analytics programs. Just kind of drilling down into the capabilities that you provide, Camille, 41% said the number one most important capability is running a single query across relational databases, file systems, and object storage. And the number 3 was running a single query across structured and semi-structured data. So we're at EMA, we are seeing the emergence of the unified analytics warehouse, where the data lake and the data warehouse are coming together. And one of the key ways this is happening is with these distributed query engines like Starburst, right? To be able to do this. So you are right in the sweet spot of what companies need to be able to succeed in 2021.
The ability to work with Starburst to be able to enact on all of these different pieces of data, as well as other data sources that are common in customers' environments, and bring all of that those insights together at one point in time. It's a nirvana.
Well, Michael and Camille, thank you so much for the great conversation today, and thank you both for the sponsorship of this this very relevant and pertinent piece of research. For those of you that have joined, this research is available, and so you have this final link that you'll get in the presentation where you'll be able to download the research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John and Michael. I hope you all picked up something interesting or relevant for your business in those survey results. We're now making the report available, so if you'd like to take a copy, check out the link. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be right back with a no-holds-barred conversation, Confessions of a Cloud Migration.